welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Belomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law, and, well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. Today I have a dear friend as a guest, Will Forero, and we're going to talk to Will about what he does. He's up in New York, right, Will?
Yeah, we're in the Bronx on a little island called City Island up in the Bronx.
Nice. And for my local friends, not to be confused with City Island in Harrisburg, very different than that, very different. So, Will, how's it going today, man?
Oh, it's going well. We're nice and busy, so I'm
That's awesome.
running around like crazy, but I'm really happy to be here, really happy to chat with you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about why you're busy and what's going on. That's some pretty interesting stuff. Certainly very different than what we do, so it's cool to be on with someone else. I just want to do a quick disclaimer before we kind of get into it, although I can't imagine we're going to get into any legal technical stuff today, being a podcast with two attorneys who do different areas. But nonetheless, please do not take advice from this radio show or any other radio show for that matter as legal advice. If you're looking for an attorney to represent you, please contact an attorney in the state that you live in who is kind of specializes or at least does a lot of the area that you're looking for. Particularly if you're in Pennsylvania and you're looking for anything in estate planning and elder law, we'd be more than happy to assist you. And if you're in New York, you're going to learn a little bit here in a minute about what Will does, and he'd also be able to assist you in that area as well. So, Will, tell us about where you're from and what you do.
So I'm originally from Long Island, and now I'm living on City Island and working on City Island at Pryor Law, which is a personal injury law firm primarily. We do have some other areas of practice. We do a little election law and a little real estate law, but mostly personal injury.
A little election law. I think that's why you're busy right now. So tell us what that is, and then I'm going to have you tell us more about personal injury. But I'm just intrigued by the whole election law stuff.
Yeah, so we represent about 14 or 15 candidates for city council right now in New York City. All but one are incumbents, and so they just had a filing deadline. So you have to collect signatures from people in your district who are supporting your candidacy, which you then file with the Board of Elections. And there's a lot of rules about how to do that, and there's a lot of mistakes that can be made, so you got to be laser focused, make sure your paperwork's nice and tight, and everybody is able to get on the ballot.
Wow, is that pretty common for people to challenge each other?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody wants to make their road to becoming a council member or whatever position they're running for a little bit easier by pointing out mistakes in other people's paperwork. So you got to make sure yours is nice and tight and compliant, and the board accepts it.
Oh, that's awesome. And tell us a little bit about what injury law is and what you do in that area.
Yeah, so the election law is a bit of a season, right? So you have the filings that are due in April, and there might be some litigation that goes into May or June. So we got to have other things to keep us busy the rest of the year. So we practice a lot of personal injury litigation. We probably have about 100 cases at Pryor Law. We're two attorneys, me and Ted Pryor, and we have two paralegals. So it ranges from anything from the more mundane, average things that happen, like your car accident, or the supermarket did a bad job cleaning up the milk spill, and you slipped and fell, or and then it ranges to the more sophisticated, more unique, uncommon things like sexual abuse. We have some cases that are childhood sexual abuse, which we were able to file because of the new Child Victims Act in New York, which allowed people who were abused to file up until a certain date.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I did not realize that. Mm-hmm. I get asked this question all the time in the area that I practice in, and certainly the answer for me might be very different than what it is for you, but I always get asked, are you in the courtroom all the time? Are you always? Certainly not in my area. In estate planning and elder law, I pride myself on the fact that I've not been in a courtroom in probably 7 or 8 years. How about for injury law? Is it as common as people think, or no?
Well, it depends on if you consider sitting in front of my laptop, wearing my suit jacket and my tie and talking to the judge in court or not. because we do that fairly often now.
Okay.
Right before the pandemic started, I got to the point where every day I was, maybe 3 days out of the week, I was starting off by going to some sort of conference.
Okay.
Compliance conference, status conference. You got to check in with the judge every now and then. And, now they're doing a lot of those virtually, which is actually pretty nice because you don't have that 2 hours back and forth in the car. You get to be a little bit more productive with that time.
Oh, that's awesome. And as far as actual trials go, I assume that's pretty rare?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably 95% of personal injury cases settle before they get to the point where a trial's scheduled. So, we had a case that was scheduled, ready for trial in mid-March, and the defense actually wanted to get an adjournment, and the judge said, I want you to go out and pick today, and we had consented to the adjournment. So we were like, yeah, well, we told them we'd adjourn it. We were amenable to that. And the judge is like, well, let me talk to you all separately, and he managed to get us to meet in a number that was acceptable to both parties, and we were able to settle that case. But yeah, so it's good for the client to get a number that they're happy with pre-trial because there's certainty in it. There's judges are fickle, not judges, juries are fickle. You never know, somebody doesn't like something about you and they don't want to give you a just sum. So it was good to settle that one. But that was one that was finally scheduled for trial, and they typically settle before they're set for trial.
Oh wow! So do you have a case that was crazy, or I mean, obviously without disclosing anything, but any fun ones, or are they all pretty standard once you get into the facts?
Fun ones. Those typically come up. The more interesting ones come up where we might have a case where it's a client that we've kind of acted as general counsel for. They might come to us every now and then. We have this issue, we have that issue, we have businesses. They have a small business. Might have how do I set up my employees' pay and sick day, and how do I deal with this or deal with that? And we do that as well. So we had we did have one trial where a guy sued his former employer, saying that he was actually a partner in the business, and he never received his share of the profits for the time that he was there. And this, of course, never actually happened, and it was his word against the employer's word. And again, it was a small business, small family business. A guy and his wife and his brother were the owners of it. And we were able to prove to the jury that this guy was just making this up because he was a disgruntled employee. But this was, 8-9 years of litigating a case that finally, and we knew that we were going to win when, the court personnel seemed to be siding with us. And you can tell by the looks on their face, they're rolling their eyes, they're kind of scoffing when the plaintiff's testifying, and if they're not buying the story, neither is the jury. So that was able to work out for us.
Wow. Yeah, wow. That is that's a very interesting fact pattern. I mean, certainly not for them, obviously. I'm sure they spent a lot of money, and I'm sure that they're disgruntled about it, but from just a straight fact, that's kind of a neat fact pattern.
It was, you hear all this wild stuff in law school, and you think, you read these cases from 100 years ago, and you're like, why would anybody sue for such a silly reason? And then it happens. People walk in our office all the time with crazy reasons for wanting to sue, and we don't take those cases. Or, people who we helped set up their business, we helped them do, the real estate transaction, whatever. They come in, they say, hey, I just got this crazy lawsuit, and now what do I do? And you're like,
well, and I imagine, obviously I'm not asking you this, you could stay stone-faced, but I imagine your client was like, I'm not settling. We didn't have an agreement. There's no way we're going to agree to settle on this when they're going to get something for nothing,
Exactly.
That's the principle of the matter. Now, of course, as a former litigator from years ago, I used to always say principles are expensive, but you almost can't in that case, if you know there wasn't a deal, you can't just cave in just for the sake of it,
Yeah, and there were reasons they didn't want to, wrap up their business and start a new one or something like that. So,
Sure.
But on the personal injury side, all the cases are fun cases when you get to that resolution.
Yeah.
It's a painful process trying to get a case to a point where the defense, which is typically insurance companies, has finally been, wrestled into a position that they kind of got their back against the wall, and they say, okay, fine, we will come up with an amount that your client will take.
Right.
And it's always, they always say a good settlement is a little bit more than they wanted to pay and a little bit less than they wanted to take, right? So, but there's the strength and certainty. It's good to know that it's not going to be up to the jurors. It's, you're able to make that deal ahead of time.
Well, as you alluded to, I mean, I've seen cases where, liability was admitted to, and car accident. I'm the one who ran the red light. Yes, I hit him, and the jury came back with zero in damages. And it's tough to appeal those things. It's tough to go against a jury, and you never know. Yeah, that's what I always tell people. When you're in a courtroom, you can't predict the outcome.
Yeah, you might have a juror that thinks, that happened to me and I wasn't injured, so this person must be, faking it. And,
right.
One thing that we've learned from, looking at hundreds of car accidents is that, sometimes it's, the perfect situation happens the way you were sitting, you end up walking out and you're completely fine. Or, you had your knee a little bit too high up and it smashed against that dashboard and you tore, a tendon in your knee or something like that. It's very freaky the way that, injuries can be sustained or avoided.
Yeah. It's a game of inches, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Wow. Man. So I know that you have a podcast. Can you tell us about your podcast and what you do on it?
Yeah, so my podcast is it's I call it the Bronx Attorney Broadcast because a lot of my handles on social media are Bronx Attorney, so I'm trying to keep the branding going, and I kind of I talk to professionals. A lot of times they're business owners, or maybe there's somebody who works for a business where they have to develop their own book of business, and a lot of times their finances are tied to how big they build their book of business. It might be somebody who salary is always going to be capped, and if they want to grow and they want to continue to make more money in that role, they need to bring in their own clientele. So it's kind of about people how they're dealing with these things, what problems they're seeing, what gives somebody that impulse to want to take on to kind of bet on themselves and go for the uncertainty and see how far they can take their career on their own.
Yeah, I had fun on your podcast, man. Yeah. It was a good time. It was a really good time.
It started off with I kind of just built a base of people I interviewed around my friends and friends of friends, right. And then we're about 15 or 16 episodes in, and finally it's starting to branch out a little bit, and people like you who I didn't know but for the podcast. Are coming on as guests, or people are reaching out to me and saying, hey, I kind of fit in this box of people that you're looking to talk to, and so it's been great. It's not I don't have any ads running in the middle of them yet, but for my own. But
right,
yeah, it's a little unconventional benefits of it that I'm starting to see now, which has really been great. It's really been fun.
Yeah. Not to put you on the spot, but do you remember how we got introduced?
Yeah, from Jess Delp, who was she was my boss at the Boy Scouts in York.
Isn't that amazing? I love that story.
Yeah, now she works for you, so.
It's just crazy. What a small world. She's like, I have this guy that I used to work with, and he's an attorney up in the Bronx. I'm like, wait, you had a guy that worked with you at the Girl Scouts that's now an attorney up in the Bronx. She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'll be on his podcast. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. Like, that was the coolest story ever.
And you never know when, these connections, how far that they can take you or what they can do for you. Because, I know I have friends that are still in Pennsylvania that I went to school with. And, they know that I'm a lawyer. So when they reach out to me and they're like, I need a will. And I'm like, well, I'm not licensed in Pennsylvania. So why don't you go talk to Jeff instead? He could probably, set you straight on that.
Yeah, she's incredible, man. She, as you know, having worked with her, she's a one of a kind, and she's our outreach communicator or community outreach coordinator. Sorry, and oh man, she is a star, and it's just so cool. And she doesn't ask for much. And when she said, "Would you, be willing to meet Will?" I'm like, "Of
Yeah.
course. Are you kidding me?" And we had so much fun on your podcast, and I've been looking forward to this one since the day we ended it. And yeah, I'm just really glad that you're here. So
Yeah, and every time that you talk to somebody, you pick up a little bit of a little tidbit of maybe some
oh
information or a suggestion or some advice that, you might be able to incorporate into, your daily life or some sort of issue that you're finding, and I think that's been really great.
Yeah. Well, and they always say lifelong learners. I mean,
Hmm.
you're never at the end. You never learned enough. You never know enough. I'm always constantly trying to figure things out and grow. And it's just fun. And it's good to be around people the same. And so how did you make that transition from, Pennsylvania Girl Scouts to going to law school and all that?
So I really didn't know what I wanted to do for most of college, and then I got an internship in the DA's office at York. I worked there for a little bit, not doing too much, paperwork, observing, stuff like that. And I thought, maybe law's for me. Let me see what kind of jobs are available. When I went back home to Long Island, I got a job working in a lead paint poisoning firm where children were lead poisoned due to the negligence of landlords.
Oh,
Where,
no.
yeah, it was, just really, landlords just really let apartments fall into disrepair. They ignored repeated complaints from their tenants about the issues that they were having, and children ended up ingesting lead paint chips and becoming, severely brain damaged as a result. A lot of learning disabilities come from it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I was working there for a while, and while I was there, I said, I think I could do the attorney thing. I think that is for me. I don't want to be a paralegal forever. I met an attorney there who kind of, I could see myself being like him, because he wasn't like the stuffy older attorney who was crotchety. He was kind of like a younger guy, liked to have fun. And I'm like, okay, so like, you don't have to be one certain way to be an attorney. So like, why don't I try that out? I studied for the LSAT, took a course, and then I applied to schools. And I actually, they terminated a division in the lead paint poisoning firm. The New Jersey side wasn't working out. They decided they only needed 2 paralegals, not 3. So I was out. I got canned. And then like 3 or 4 days later, I get a letter from St. John's. They say, hey, we'd like you to come to school here, and we'd like to let you go for free. So I said, hey, you know what? Not so bad to get fired when you get news like that a couple of days later, right?
Yeah, how about it? That's great news in that instance. Holy cow. Wow, and I don't know if you've had this experience at all, but I'm very similar to you in that I'm not the old stuffy, you know, attorney. I'll kind of watch my words here, but and I think at times, I'll hear rumors and things of people saying, "Oh, he's just a marketer. He's just, this guy who's out there, No, I have every degree you have. I have a LLM. I have a CELA. I have, But it's just funny that when you're not like that, and when you're not like something or someone, how they just have these immediate assumptions that you're not good or you're not. You don't even know me. Like it's just fascinating to me.
I think a lot of attorneys never have as much client interaction as we do, so they get laser focused on being the ultimate technician, and they're not working on their interpersonal skills and their marketing and their branding skills as much as we are. So, it's a little bit of a difference. You got to be a good technician and a good marketer at the same time. Everybody that you meet when you're a small firm like we are and like you are could be a potential client, or they could be a potential source of business where you could get 12 clients, 24 clients out of it. So, every hand you shake is an opportunity.
And just, like they always say the phrase of when something is not like you, you don't like it, or you're not okay with it because it's different. But different doesn't always mean bad, I think we're both great attorneys and certainly good at it, but we also understand the other side of it. You have to, in order to run a business and keep people employed and put food on the table for a bunch of families, you have to be able to bring income in to be able to do all that. And who else is bringing it in except us, right? We're the ones out there doing it, and we get to do a little bit of everything. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and recently I've been trying to focus even more on, when you meet people or you work with somebody, trying to make that personal connection with them. Because we're very transactional. We go to the supermarket, we get our stuff scanned, or we go to the doctor. The receptionist gives us the form and tells us to sit down, and it's. I don't want somebody who works with me to be thinking about I'm another one of the transactions for the day. I want them to think, I like Will. I like talking to Will. I got a potential case. I got to call Will every time I give him a phone call. It's a fun chat. So I've been trying to find things in common with people and kind of just make the experience a little bit more enjoyable, make it a little bit more personal than it might be.
I tell everybody we're in the relationship business. Mm-hmm. That's the business we're in. You can call it anything you want, but we're in the relationship business. And when you build a good relationship, people trust people more, and it's better for everybody. And I think sometimes we get too transactional. And by we, I don't mean you and I. I think the attorneys that we were referencing, they get very transactional, and they forget that there's a relationship on the other side, and they have feelings and emotions, and you have to be there for people. So
and just I think businesses as a whole, it just gets a little too. I think transactional is the best way to put it. It's not it's not as enjoyable an experience as it could be.
Right.
And I think especially with your like referral partners, it's good to make that experience as enjoyable as possible. Make them know you as a person, not just as the technician that they need to go to get a certain thing done.
It's interesting that you had that lead paint experience when you were kind of, I don't know, learning where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do, because I didn't necessarily have that kind of experience that would have led me into litigation. I had a similar experience that led me kind of towards the estate planning side with my mom getting sick. And so it is interesting how events in our lives, we both are lawyers and we both practice law, but very different in what we do, both because of something that occurred that made us very passionate. And that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. And I always had an issue growing up with authority figures too. So now when the insurance companies are telling me your client's not hurt, you're only worth 10 grand, blah, 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 blah. I like to fight with them and think, the playing field's been leveled now that I'm involved. I'm gonna fight as hard as I can to fight you to, make sure that we don't get 10K, we get 100 or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it. If somebody was looking to find you at the law firm or the podcast, how would they do that?
Yeah, so I do everything. The podcast just runs through me, so it's at Bronx Attorney on Instagram, on Twitter. On LinkedIn, I think I got the same handle. We got the firm website, PryorLaw.com. I have my own website, BronxAttorneyLaw.com. So you search my name or Bronx Attorney or one or the other, and you'll probably find me sooner or later.
That is awesome. I'm excited. I'll have to do that when we're done here today, and it's very cool, man. I love how fast these podcasts go, and I look over and I'm like, holy crap, you got to be kidding me. Well, that was fun. Was there anything else you wanted to say or add before we kind of close at the podcast today, Will?
No, not really. These are easy when you spend all day thinking about your brand and your marketing and how next to your goals and what you're going to do to accomplish them. Once you get on the mic, it goes fast. Yeah,
it sure does, especially when you have someone you respect and admire and have fun with. So I knew this would be a good one today, and it certainly was. So I'd like to thank Will for joining us today, and also to my listeners for being here. Thanks for joining us on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law. And, well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. Today fell under the and anything else we want to talk about. I had a dear friend, Will Forero, with us today, who is with Pryor Law and who has a podcast, Bronx Attorney. Check him out. He is a wonderful man and a great attorney, changing lives, and we certainly appreciate everything you do, Will, and you guys do at Pryor Law. And For my listeners, thanks for joining us. Please remember, we have weekly workshops for estate planning, crisis planning, special needs planning, probate administration, trust administration. Make sure that you get educated so that what happened to my family does not happen to yours. If you need any assistance and you're in Pennsylvania, you're looking for estate planning and elder law, check us out, 717-845-5390 or www.belomoassociates.com. Thanks for coming to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show. Until next time, we'll see you real soon.